Hello, this is Tael, and this is Tael Talks, and today I'd like to talk to you about a little game that I picked up for the PlayStation 3 for $3 at a market back in Australia just before I moved here to Canada. I picked up two games on this day for $3 each from this woman. It was Quantum of Solace for the PlayStation 3. You're like, why do I care about a licensed James Bond game from way back when? And you probably don't. I probably shouldn't have either, but I was intrigued by it because everyone loved GoldenEye, and everyone's wanting that magic to come back again. I don't think that magic's ever going to return, and I do think that GoldenEye has aged horribly, personally. I understand why it's a classic and people are nostalgic for it, but really going back and playing it now is not so good. I respect what it did for the industry and what it did for the first-person shooter on consoles genre. Personally, I think Turok actually feels easier to go back to now because the controls more closely resemble what we use now. But anyway, GoldenEye, great game at the time, not a great game in retrospect now. Anyway, everyone's wanting that magic back again, and I'm not going to say no to any game for any console for $3, whether it's terrible or not. So I picked up Quantum of Solace. This was, of course, made by Treyarch, who now are big on the Call of Duties, and Quantum of Solace was made in the Call of Duty engine, and it feels just like a Call of Duty should. So I guess the first thing that's worth noting is it uses the James Bond license incredibly well. They got Daniel Craig and Judi Dench in. Is it Judi Dench? Judith Dench? The lady who plays them. They all redid all their lines and everything, and it comes across well and sounds great and everything. So it's really cleverly uses the James Bond license. But the way the story was presented, so I've seen Casino Royale quite a number of times. I really enjoy that movie. I saw Quantum of Solace at the movies and haven't seen it since. But the way the game works is it starts in Quantum of Solace, and then after a certain point it turns into a flashback where you play through all the major scenes from Casino Royale, and then the last level is Quantum of Solace again. It's probably about 80% Casino Royale and about 20% Quantum of Solace in terms of actually how much of each movie is in the game. But the way it was presented, it took me until the flashback to realize what the fuck was happening and what I was actually doing. I was very confused for the earlier parts of the game. I had no idea what was happening or why or who or... So I guess that's something that's worth mentioning. If the game is licensed, and this is something that GoldenEye did do well, you still knew everything what was happening and who was who because it took the time to explain it to you. A licensed game should not assume that the person who's playing it has seen the movie. I know that seems weird, but I mean, there's a lot of people out there who got Iron Man for Christmas who hadn't seen the movie or whatever from Grandma. Playing through this, I had no idea what was going on or why. And if anyone hadn't seen the movie in more than a couple of weeks, they probably would be in the same boat. So that kind of bothered me, but not enough to turn me off it. The gameplay itself, obviously being based in the Call of Duty engine, Duty, whatevs. The gunplay felt serviceable. Some of the game's weapons felt a little bit weak, I will say, and the explosions in the game definitely felt weak. This game has really sad explosions, which was quite sad. But a lot of the guns felt really good. It has a cover system, which Call of Duty obviously doesn't. It's not perfect, but it works how it's intended. I personally didn't mind it was there. James Bond, he spends a bit of time hiding behind walls. He's not bulletproof, so that was, I think, a fair addition and a wise addition. It's funny how in these games he's always running around guns blazing, but in the movies he's very rarely like that. I always found that kind of odd. It's also pretty cool in some of the cutscenes, in some of the firefights, all of the music stops and it's dead silent, and that works really well. And then all of a sudden you get the James Bond theme kick up with the guitar happening. And whenever that happens, it always makes you feel like a complete badass, and I very much enjoyed that. I'm assuming the rest of the music was taken from the film. I don't think there was anything composed specifically for this game, but I could be wrong. I didn't look into that. Something that did bother me about the game, and I guess it's because both movies had this too, there are two levels where you have to shoot your way through a burning building. Now, I could make an entire video on how I'm sick of playing through games that have a burning building sequence in them, but this game makes you go through two. I would almost put the burning building levels as like a cardinal sin now. It seems to be a thing that's only popped up in the last few years of gaming. I know there are older games that did have them, but now like every single game has that level where you gotta go through that house that's on fire. And yeah, getting two of them thrown at you, and that's kind of a little bit too much for me. Could have done without that. And I know it's a small thing, and probably most people wouldn't even think anything of it, but it certainly bothered me. Something else that bothered me was they had CG recreations of scenes from Casino Royale. Now, I don't know if they had them for Quantum of Solace as well, but they definitely had them for some scenes from Casino Royale, and they look bizarre. I don't understand why they had this CG instead of just using footage from the movie. I mean, I guess it could be a rights issue, but I mean, if you're developing a game based on a license, I would imagine that you'd get the license to use footage from that game. So I'm assuming it's just to try to tie the visuals of the game easier into the cutscenes, but I don't know for sure. But the thing is, it seems like a redundant thing to do, to completely recreate scenes from a film in CG when there's a perfectly fine film version out there. And it's got the Uncanny Valley thing, and it's weird. I don't understand why it's there. It's weird. And obviously this wasn't the most amazing game in the world, but the end fight, or the final boss, was a joke. So the level leading up to this could be quite difficult. There was this wave of guys after guys that you shoot. There's very little variation in weapons or anything like that, which is kind of boring, and it was taxing, and it took a while, and blah blah blah. I got pretty sick and tired of it. And then the end boss comes up, and originally I was just trying to shoot the guy, which isn't what you do. There's gas canisters on either side of him, and you just shoot those 2 sets of gas canisters, and that causes an explosion, and that's the end. So the end fight is incredibly underwhelming, but here's the thing, I don't know how else you could do an end fight like that in a game like this, because you don't want to be doing what Arkham Asylum did, where the Joker got all big and shit and started fucking stuff up. Boss fights are a kind of strange thing in a game like this, and I don't think they really have any place in here, but I guess they felt like they couldn't just have a firefight and have that in the game. So that was a little weird. Also, it has quick time events in some of the other boss fights, which, once again, the first time they come up out of nowhere. There's been no indication throughout the game at all up until this period that there'll be quick time events in there, and then all of a sudden, fucking quick time events, boom. And, I kind of wish they were just cutscenes, because having to watch the same cutscene over and over again because you fucked up a quick time event is incredibly infuriating and pulls you right out of the experience, or at least it does for me. I don't know if anyone else suffers from that when that's happening. But overall, for $3, I felt pretty good about my purchase of Quantum of Solace. I certainly don't feel like I lost out or anything. Once again, it's not a fantastic game or anything like that, but the mechanics are solid. It has a few little issues here or there with things added in there that I don't personally feel like they really needed, but whatever, they're there. Checkpoints are well placed for the most part. Yeah, for a licensed game, it's good, but in terms of an actual game on its own merits, it's a little less amazing. But I definitely recommend picking up if you can see it for like $5. It's worth playing through if you're a fan of the James Bond license or brand, definitely. Anyway, what are your thoughts? What are your favorite Bond games outside of GoldenEye? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. And thank you for tuning into Tael Talks. I'll see you guys next time.